Welcome. This is our Afterthought segment where we keep our guests around for a little more extended conversation. Today with us we have Phil Lindley, the Executive Director of Connect Maine Authority, Steve Hand, the President of No Technology. He's also on the Tech Maine Board, and Representative Cynthia Dill, District 121 Cape Elizabeth, who is also the co-chair of the State Broadband Strategy Council. Sorry, I got all the titles in correctly. Good. Thanks for sticking around. We had a good segment where we got to touch on some of these issues as it goes very fast, as you can see. So I wanted to stick around and have a little more discussion about this. We talked about the 7 projects that were selected through the Broadband Council process. They were recommended to the governor, and then the governor has now recommended them on to Washington for possible, how much is it? $42.7 million of possible funding if we get them all. So I guess I wanted to follow up on that is, how do we stand with it? What do you think the likelihood of our ability to get funded, and when will we know about those projects at the federal level? Do you want to talk about that?
Well, I know that the 3-ring binder project has been very active in communicating with our federal delegation and has recently announced to people who are interested, it's a very open process and a very open project, that they are cautiously optimistic that the project is moving forward and have gotten signals that at least certain people along the way are attracted to and think highly of the project. Okay. So that's one that I am also cautiously optimistic about. I'm not clear what the status of the Fairpoint projects are and the others, but I have been keeping in touch with the 3-ring binder project, and that's incredibly exciting for the state of Maine.
Good. Okay. How about you, Phil? You want to weigh in on that?
Oh no, I agree with Cynthia. I mean, it is the largest project. It has the potential to be the most long-term, far-reaching. Building a highway system is what it's all about. It's a collaboration of a lot of different companies and people who have been involved in planning it. So it's really it is an exciting project because it is so many people that are involved, and it's going to provide a lot of good backhaul bandwidth. Good.
3 of the 7 projects are Fairpoint projects that were selected and went forward. Is that problematic, the fact that Fairpoint has clearly struggled in Maine, that they just announced their filing for bankruptcy? What do you think about that in terms of being at the federal level? What do you hear out there?
Most likely, the funding, and I don't know the details of how the funds come about, but there's rules that are going to come to that funding, those fundings coming through to Fairpoint, and I hope Fairpoint gets them. And the ability of Fairpoint to deliver on those projects is going to be important. We need to stop thinking about Fairpoint itself. Think about the importance of those projects to what's happening in the state.
Right. Gotcha.
And let the Fairpoint bankruptcy stand to itself, and let these projects and the funding sources are going to require they happen correctly.
Yeah, I'm just curious about in Washington, are they going to be able to? They read the newspapers, I think, up there.
Yes, although I think Washington's very familiar with big companies going through bankruptcy and reorganization, so much will depend on the success of the reorganization efforts. If a lot of time and energy gets wrapped up in litigating issues within the bankruptcy case, then I think it'll be problematic. But if, in fact, it's a successful bankruptcy and that a significant portion of the debt is relieved and Fairpoint can focus on what it does well, these projects could come through and really help a lot of people and a lot of businesses in Maine.
Good. And I wanted to follow up on that. You meant there are people and there are businesses, and they're often the same thing. A lot of this obviously is developed for expanding broadband accessibility to rural parts of Maine. Portland's fine, Bangor's fine. The bigger cities have what they need, I suppose. How about, is it really going to stimulate business, though? And if it gets, I understand we're going to have more ability to have broadband access for homes, which is a good thing, and then narrows that digital divide. But are we really going to create jobs?
Well, interesting. I think in the short term, if a business in a rural part of Maine gets high-speed internet access, in fact, it could shed jobs in the short term because it'll become more efficient. But I think all the studies indicate that access to broadband is necessary if you want to compete in the global economy. And so not only will it create jobs, but it'll really create a platform on which businesses in Maine can compete on a level playing field with businesses in Europe, with businesses in Texas. And what's really important and really exciting is that if we're successful in building out a secure and reliable telecommunications network, we can communicate with Halifax, which has a pipe over to Europe. And so instead of Maine being at the end of the road, we become a hub. And one last point is that you mentioned there's businesses and there's people, but there's also what's called in the stimulus bill, community anchor institutions, and it's so important that our hospitals and our courthouses and our schools get on a telecommunications network so that we can reduce our healthcare costs by using telemed. And, I mean, the possibilities are really endless.
I want to hear from especially the TechMaine members' perspective. There are tons of small firms out there that 2, 3, 5. That's, you get up to 6 people. That's a big IT firm in Maine. Are they going to expand out? Can they do more in northern Maine if this were there? What do you think?
It's really about the reliability and the cost effectiveness of that connectivity. Today, if you're in rural Maine or underserved areas of Maine, you can't get the technology, or you can't even afford to bring in a T1 circuit, etc. If we can get this down to a cost-effective manner for reliable connectivity, they will expand. They will look at hiring people. They will look at hiring remote workers, etc., no matter where they live. So it is to get these projects through is a big win for the state.
Good. Okay. I wanted to ask quickly. You mentioned earlier, and I wanted to bring it up in our afterthought segment about the issue of the University of Maine capacity, the capacity that they have, and the research, the internet capacity that they have, and broadband that they have. Can you speak a little bit about that?
The university is, as you know, has many branches around the state, but also is part of a higher educational network with Dartmouth and different universities in Maine and New Hampshire and Vermont. And so it's the needs of a university are just way beyond what a business or a consumer might need in terms of bandwidth. And so it's really important for our universities.
Research and supercomputing needs, those kinds of things?
Yes, and I think if we really want to create jobs and to foster economic development, we need to educate our workforce and create a workforce for the 21st century.
Okay. I wanted to ask, the final question is, you folks are going to work on all this. What's the future look like? What's the next big thing in technology? And then how do we plan for that? Things we don't even know are going to exist. I mean, think about it. I mean, 10 years ago, we didn't know that the technologies that would be here today, and now we're scrambling to get it caught up so that we can be competitive and have a competitive advantage. What's coming up, or how do we plan for that?
As we work with our clients, it's really about the combination of presence and video. Video is not realistic today for most people. You need bidirectional service. You need symmetric service, and most of what we have is asymmetric. Creating more off-ramps. If we build this highway, and the nice thing about this project is it's building large off-ramps to get out to the communities, so we can get more symmetric service out there. Support video, the ability to be a support agent in Washington County, Maine, providing service for somebody in California is a realistic thought. But until we get this highway, until we get the ability for presence and video, and presence is that idea of being able, you all see it if you use Yahoo or IM, where you can see, hey, they're available for a chat. But to mix that presence functionality and video together, no matter where you are, is what we're seeing is the next big thing.
Well, in terms of policies, what's on the horizon is net neutrality. That's a big deal. And the taxation of some of these new technologies. I'm not a big proponent of high taxation, don't worry, but there is a need for policymakers to think about, okay, this is no longer a telephone bill where we're going to put a universal service tax. How are we going to do it? But another futuristic idea that's really exciting for states like Maine is what's called green data mills. And the new capacity that's already being done is this cloud feature where your own computer doesn't have to have as much capacity because you can just sort of send work off to a big facility. If you could imagine some of our paper mills that are perhaps defunct and empty, they often sit on very high renewable energy. And so we could perhaps have green data mills in some of our mills in the state of Maine. That would just be a wonderful way to create jobs, to use renewable energy, and to maybe have Microsoft move to Maine.
There you go.
Yeah.
Good. And
I'm working
a lot of it has to do with, good, that's good to know. Get busy, keep busy. All right, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.